Hi there, welcome to the Gardens and Graveyard channel. My name is Charisma and today we're in the garden and we're going to prune some flowering shrubs. Now some of these shrubs are a little bit late to be pruned. The lilacs that are right behind me, these plants here and this plant here finished blooming maybe 2 months ago. So I'm gonna try to keep a lot of the old growth on there so that they'll have blooms next year. But they do need to get out of the walkway. Right here is our gate, and you can see that it's just like covered in branches. So we want to clear that space. Oops. We want to make sure that that space is clear so we could easily walk through. We're gonna limb things up. We're gonna cut down all the suckers and just give it an overall shape pruning job. So it wouldn't have mattered if I would have done it now or later because these are all branches that don't belong there, whether they're gonna bloom or not. The other plant that I have is on the other side of this lilac, which is a Himalayan honeysuckle. Now Himalayan honeysuckles can be pruned down to the ground 6 to 8 inches below, or 6 to 8 inches above the ground, and you do that in late winter and let it all flush back. But it takes 3 to 5 years to fully rejuvenate and bloom really well that way. And in our climate, because we are in a zone 9A on the Oregon coast, and it is very temperate. Remember what our sunset zone, that's what I should actually be quoting here, because USDA zone is really in reference to when our last frost date is, which is late. It's in the beginning of December. But more importantly, we're in the maritime climate, which means we just don't get very hot and we don't get very cold. And when we prune something like that all the way down, it takes it a long time to get back to its former glory. So what I like to do is come in around this time, just before it starts blooming again, and selectively prune out plant stems that are broken, dead, damaged, growing into the canopy of the shrub, or are growing like in a weird way that doesn't make sense for the shape of the shrub. And then after I'm done with that, then I go through and thin out the shrub so that new growth can come up next year or during the summer that will bloom next year or maybe in 2 years. I'll show you a closer look at that when we get over there. Those 3 shrubs are my priority today. We do have an escallonia on the other side of this lilac that will be saved for another time. That's a 2-person job for sure. I need a ladder, I need a chainsaw, like it's a whole thing. But I do hope that if I have time, energy, and it's not raining, I'd like to get over to the other side of the garden, just at the end of this fence line here, and prune our Regelia, which is just now being done blooming. Rain is threatening. It's sprinkled a little bit already since I've been out here, and the Weather Channel says it won't start till 8 p.m., which is in a few hours from now, but I don't know. I do like pruning this time in this type of climate when it's all overcast. It's so much more comfortable to prune, but it is also a little bit windy, so sometimes that's not great because the wind will push the boughs like down, and you'll take a cut and realize that if the bough wasn't being pushed around, it didn't need to be cut. So you do kind of have to watch out for stuff like that. Anyway, we're gonna start with these lilacs. I'm gonna turn around the camera just to give you an even better view of what the lilacs look like from this side, and then we'll step over onto the other side and look at it facing this way so you could get like an overall view of just how overgrown these lilacs are. These lilacs were here when I moved into the house, so I don't know the variety name. They are an old-fashioned lilac that gets super tall and they bloom way up high, which isn't ideal because I can't really smell them unless I like pull on the branches or cut them down so I can smell them. But they really are very beautiful, and it is the second layer over these rhododendrons. They're above the rhododendrons. So from my living room windows, I could see the rhodies and then the lilacs, and the blooms on the lilacs are above that. So I get to enjoy them that way. All right, let's get started. So looking from this direction, you can see that, I mean, I recently cut off a couple and propped it up underneath this arch. This one, we won't have to do a whole lot of pruning except to back it off of our walkway here. And then you can see underneath here, there's a whole bunch of suckers right in here that I will remove most likely. Although this, well, I'll have to selectively decide on that, and I'll tell you what I decide in the end. And then over on this side, we have this lilac that has been creating kind of a canopy over this doghouse, which Jasmine used to use. But for those of you who are new to my channel, Jasmine was our Great Pyrenees that was put to sleep this spring. And so her doghouse is being retired, and we no longer need this heavy of a coverage in here. I'll take down the bird feeder, and we'll probably do a pretty significant prune off of the coyote bush and over onto its own side, and just let it be a little bit more in sync with this lilac. And then of course take all of this off of the walkway, and there's a whole bunch of suckers down there that need to be removed. Just kind of climb through here, and this is the top of a tire garden that I just have a bunch of wildflowers growing on. We've got foxgloves and hollyhocks and straw flowers. We recently came out here and did that. Okay, so you could see where I opened the gate there, the lilac right here. All of this here on the bottom will be removed. And then this is the Himalayan honeysuckle that I'm going to attempt to work on today. You can see what it does. All that really bright green growth is the new growth. The darker green growth is last year's growth. This is last year's growth. This is this year's growth. You see the bright green, light green. Then we've got a olive green that was 2 years ago, and then it goes, well, down in there, but this one's dead. This is 2 years growth, and then you get down in here and it gets a lot more woody, and that's 4 years. So yeah, so what I do is, for example, this one that's 4 years old, and it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 branches coming off of it. It's just getting a little wild. So this one would come out and allow space for, like, say, this one to come through and be amazing. Or like on this one that has, gosh, I don't even know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 20, over 20 branches on this stem here. I'm going to take that one out, or I could take it down to this first piece of new growth. Get these leaves out of the way. I could take it down to this crotch here and just let this one grow and take off all of this and remove some of this, like, congestion. So that is what I'm gonna kind of work on. You can see what they do is, I mean, this is no longer valid. It just is hollow, but then it has a new stem right here. So interesting shrub. I really love the flowers on this plant though, so even though it's hard to kind of prune and figure out what I'm doing with it, it's worth it. Let's see, I can show you. These are just starting, and this is on last year's stock on top of a 2 or 3 year old stock, and you can see that the flower drop is only maybe 2.5, 3 inches long, and when they're a brand new stock like this one, later this season, this will have an 8-inch chain of flowers on it. So the flowers just get shorter and shorter and not as showy the older and older the stems are. And then of course anything broken like this or dead like this will come out. So yeah, we just need to clean it up. It'll look a lot less congested and have room to breathe, and I might have to tie some of it up. I like to leave a little bit of the structure on it so that it kind of holds itself, but that's not always possible. I learned my lesson though when I learned how to prune it. I just did a Google search and looked at several different sites to see what different people had to say about this shrub and how to treat it, how to prune it. And it was highly recommended that you just cut it down and let it flush back out every winter. And I did that twice, 2 different times I did that, and sacrificed a year of blooms. And it's just not, that's just not worth it to me. And then I realized that I could just selectively prune so that I have blooms every year. Last year the only pruning that I did on this plant was to get it up off of the spirea. I have 2 spireas underneath here, and I just pruned it so that those had some sun. But this year it just needs a little bit more. All right, so we're gonna start with these 3, and I might take a little bit off of this Escallonia just so I could use the pathway safely without smacking myself in the face with these things. So here you can kind of see, this is the mother plant with all of these old branches. And then there's new growth coming up around the root system. And because these are so old and they're getting kind of brittle, I'm letting new growth come up in hopes to preserve, but then they sucker all the way out here, and I don't need a lilac shrub all the way over here where this plant is. So I'm gonna remove all of these. I just cut them to the ground because their root system is, you know, just coming up from that mother plant. So technically I could take a spade or shovel and slice through the root and have a small plant. Like each one of these has the potential of being a little plant. But, you know, I can't save them all. Okay. This thing is blooming, kind of.
Oh yeah?
So now that Himalayan honeysuckle has been thinned out and pruned, and we removed all the dead stuff from the middle of it and any extra super branching kind of stuff going on in the canopy. We left some because I think it blooms on first and second year wood, so I'll leave some of that on there. But definitely cleaner, definitely just, you know, back in her own space and not crowding everybody out. The spirea has a little bit of room to breathe. The epimedium has a little room to grow. Yeah, and it just feels like I could breathe a little bit more. And then with the lilac, I took out all the suckers around the bottom, and I didn't actually touch the top of either one of these lilacs. I just fixated around the base and removed anything that I didn't want, because I am trying to let some of the newer growth take hold so that when it's time to remove these bigger ones, we have new ones to replace it. I did remove a couple of larger pieces that were just kind of growing into the pathway. Now, we can walk through the pathway without getting poked in the face, which is really nice. And then this made the biggest difference right here. We took off several large lilac pieces that were overhanging the doghouse, and of course pruning the Himalayan honeysuckle back there in that corner. Removed all the growth that was over the coyote bush. You could see what all that overhang has been doing, where the coyote bush is, you know, a good 2.5 feet different from the back part of its growth to the front part of its growth. So that will have more sunshine, which I'm sure it will enjoy. And when we come through and prune it, it won't have such a huge difference because we will be pruning off a lot of the top of that. And I'll just try to, you know, make it a little bit more even. There's quite a bit of dead in here that will remove these. They're a hebe, and they really just grow over the top, you know, several inches, and then the interior is all empty. But if we cut into that wood, it's not likely to grow back, so such as it is. Yeah, it just looks a lot cleaner around here, and happy about it. I'm gonna stop here for the day. Crouching around that Himalayan honeysuckle kind of took it out of my lower back, so those Woodgelia will have to wait again. It's the second project that I thought I was gonna get to those and didn't. Oh well. All right, I took all my shade away. Plus, the blue skies came out. We're no longer cloudy. It's getting quite warm in my sweatshirt. Didn't actually have to worry about the rains like I thought I was when I started this project. And yeah, so thanks a lot for hanging out with me while I pruned some shrubs, some very large overgrown shrubs. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope that you're celebrating your life, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye.